Hello, everyone. Welcome to chapter 205 of The Last Thoughts of a Busy Mind. This one titled Iran and Social Media. We are still going through a list of things that people misunderstand about Iran. We are still in season 14, so that's the theme. And this one probably should have been titled Iran and Conspiracy Theories, but a lot of these conspiracy theories and ideas stem from social media, so I thought this was a more appropriate title. Before we go on, my drink today is some water and electrolytes because my body feels like I've been hit by two consecutive 18 wheelers. Amazing. It vaguely tastes of lemon. Tastes more medicinal. Anyways, let me talk to you about Iranians and conspiracy theories. Now, this is one of the ideas that I believe it's not unique to Iran. Social media harnesses a lot of conspiracy theories because they're good for engagement, and conspiracy theorists and conspiracy laden people usually make the majority of people who actually look at social media with the uncritical eye. Sadly, that is what has happened to Iran with more intensity. Now, I will get to specific things like the Persian Twitter, the cesspool that is, and the fascism that it has garnered. But before we get there, let me just tell you why is it that Iranians seem to be more primed for conspiracy theories. As usual, whenever something is wrong with Iran, the answer to it is more than likely systematic. Now, I've talked about it in the last week's episode that the Iranian state media, IRIB, is a propaganda network, and sadly, the Iranian opposition media is also a propagandist network, but for something else. Now, sorry about the noises, by the way. I don't know why, but my microphone seems to be picking up a lot of static. It's wire issues. Sorry about that. I will get that sorted. But before we go on, okay. The Iranian system creates conspiracy theories by some incredibly easy tactics. First of all, the Iranian government lacks a lot of legitimacy, as it should. But through that lack of legitimacy, they actually have created this mindset that everything and anything is a conspiracy theory. You just don't know it yet. Everything can be a conspiracy theory. Everything is a conspiracy theory. Even people who are aware of that usually get duped. Because that's how the system works. You cannot trust any official narratives on anything, whether it's history, culture, news, nothing. So when you don't have an official narrative, when you are told that to never trust the official narrative because the official narrative has been discredited so many times unjustly, just so we're clear, it's not like, oh, people just try to ruin the reputation. No, the reputation was gone organically. So when that happens, you are primed for more conspiracy theories. It's actually what happened in other countries as well, but in Iran it's more prominent because when you have an authoritarian isolationist system, things just grow faster, like still water. It tends to have more bacteria. So you imagine a group of people raised up in a system that people who are born in 1960s, 1360s, which is 1980s, and 1990s and 2000s. And these are people who are born with the knowledge that the system that they are inside of cannot be trusted. So everything is a conspiracy. Every simple news is a conspiracy. Even when the system is working as intended, it's a conspiracy because honestly, it shouldn't be working as intended. So why is it working as intended? Some prominent sexual abuser gets apprehended. It's not system working as intended. It's the system trying to hide some other scandal by arresting this one. And I don't blame people who feel that way. It does genuinely feel like that because, well, there is no trust in the system, and the system hasn't done anything to garner that trust either. It's worth being disreputed. So you put that amount of people onto a social media platform whose bread and butter is engagement, and nothing gets engagement more than conspiracies and the idea that you are somehow, somewhere, dismantling the system of operations through figuring out the secret behind everything. Twitter, or to ask yourselves amongst you, X. Persian Twitter was a phenomenon that thankfully I didn't fully get into. I was always at an arm's distance to it because I was always at an arm's distance to Twitter in general. I fucking hated the site. So I managed to observe it without actually participating in it, and the things I observed were troubling to say the least. The amount of conspiracy theories that rise from everything is just baffling. First of all, to be fair and balanced and all of that, it's not always bad. Persian Twitter is responsible for putting quite a lot of pressure on things that usually would have gone unnoticed in 1980s and 1990s. So there is actually a level of worth to the whole madness. They actually put pressure on certain things. But at the same time, they are, cesspools for bad thoughts and bad ideas. Because first of all, when you don't have any official narratives, when you don't have any official ideas of what is going on, when you feel like there is nothing that can be trusted, in return, there is no truth to be checked. There is no facts to be checked. Everything is only face value. And it's, again, not an uniquely Iranian problem, but Iranians in specific are more primed to it because, well, our system is designed to create us this way. It's created us to be like this. So, okay, there is that. Now, imagine a world where everything is taken at face value on a social media, and in that face value, everything is fair game. Massive conspiracy theories like how the Iranian government is poisoning the people is put next to how this prominent public figure is actually, I don't know, a Satanist or something. Now, everything, when it's put at face value, it creates this world where, you don't know what you're looking for. And people who seem to have the answer in this uncertainty tend to appear more persuasive. That's actually one of the reasons several of these propagandist channels that I talked about in the last episode actually gain prominence because they feel like they know the answer. That's why monarchists and royalists seem to have a prominence in these online spaces and in these conspiracy theory spaces because, well, they have the answer. They want to go back to a system that seemed to have worked when you actually don't look at it very hard. So the the Persian Twitter creates this world where everything is a conspiracy. There is no doubt about it. As I said, even people who are knowing of that sometimes fall to it. I've seen so many people talking about, like, people who are talking about, oh, this is a conspiracy, this is not true. People who try to fact check the world around them. And then something happens in Iran, and they sometimes say, okay, it feels weird that this is happening. There must be a conspiracy there. Because, again, we are designed like that. We are designed to treat everything like that. There is no trust in anything that our system gives us. And that trust, sadly, has ballooned into no trust of anything ever. So that leads you towards a path that anyone who says the thing they want with the most confidence is usually the one who's telling the truth. Because, if you don't have to look at the facts, if everything is at face value, confidence is key. Confidence is the only currency that matters. And let me tell you, where does that lead you? Well, fascism, because fascists are usually the most confident people about what they want. Now, when I'm talking about fascism, I'm genuinely trying to not only talk about monarchists and royalists, because though they are very fascistic, and we probably will talk about them one day. I've talked about them in length, I think, so far. But when I'm talking about fascism, Persian fascism is, well, I'm not going to call it a unique brand. It's not unique, but it is unique in flavor. It is our own brand of fascism, and you're not getting it anywhere else unless you're Iranian. Iranian fascism is something that is both very much comes from social media and at the same time bleeds into the real world in the most horrific of ways. Iranian fascism is, of course, isolationist. It's probably the only thing they have taken from the Islamic Republic, but at the same time, it is very much in service of the greater fascistic world. These are the people who look at Zohran Mamdani and think of him as an extended arm of the Islamic Republic, because everything Muslim is somehow related to Islamic Republic. Everything. Doesn't matter who or what. You put the word Islam somewhere and it is related to Islamic Republic. Now, you may have noticing that is the same thing that American fascists use. But instead of Islamic Republic, it's like Al-Qaeda or some idea of jihadist. Because, well, as I said, it's not unique. The thing that makes them unique is that these are people who have primed to connect everything to this one system, Islamic Republic. Now, Islamic Republic to them is at the same time this vast conspiracy with tentacles throughout the whole world, and at the same time too dumb to actually do anything. The double think is, it's again not unique to Iranians, but it's what makes these thoughts dangerous. When you have the idea that your enemy is at the same time too strong to be manipulated and too weak to be effective, you create both complacency and, again, conspiracy. And conspiracy is the bedrock for fascism because, well, when you have conspiracy, when you can blame everything on one people, on one group, the ideas that you come across with tend to be less human values involved. For example, the Afghan refugee crisis in Iran suddenly becomes the work of Islamic Republic. Oh, these people have brought these Afghan immigrants in and have given them homes and make us unsafe. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. I'm under-exaggerating. I'm not telling you the extent of I don't want to repeat the wild words they say involving genetics and all of that. Because, again, eugenics, part of fascism, and Iranians somehow believe that they are white and they are Aryan. And okay, I'm just gonna to go on a little tangent that this is true, and it's most obvious in, again, Persian Twitter and spaces like that. And again, comes from conspiracy that I don't know how it has happened. Okay, so whenever there is anything regarding white people versus group of people, that is usually touted by the American right wings, whites versus X. And X here means blank, not X the platform. Even when, it was white people versus Twitter. Whenever that happens, the Persian Twitter is solemnly on the side of whites. But they don't call it like, the American whites are doing like that. They are not like, these are like, if we help them, they will help us, all of that. No, no, no. They always use the phrase us. They believe they are white. Now, the reasoning for that is complex. And some of it comes back to the fact that Iranians believe we are Aryans, the same way Hitler thought he was Aryan. I'm not even kidding. Iranians believe that when Hitler said Aryans, he was talking about Germans and Iranians. Well, Persians. I don't know how this I can guess on how it happens, but I don't want to guess. That's the problem. We don't need to guess. We shouldn't guess. That's the system that has been designed. System where you can easily just throw away the words of expert and guess on what has happened. System where people proudly say, I don't read history because all of history is manipulated, but I sat down and thought about it and realized historical truths about these lands. And it was good back then. Why? I saw a picture. And I have built my whole identity around that one picture that showed the beach in 1970. Again, Iranians are primed for conspiracies. I am primed for conspiracy. Do not get me wrong. When Peshman Jamshidi was arrested for sexual assault, I wasn't like, okay, yeah, I wasn't either like he didn't do it or, he was wrongly accused. I'm sure he did it. Everyone in Iranian cinema, to some extent, is a sexual monster because the system allows it. I'm sorry, it's just part of the reality. Nobody who works in Iranian system is clean. They are guilty to some extent, whether by staying quiet about something they witnessed, if not actively participating in it. So when Peshman Jamshidi was arrested, I was like, okay, yeah, he did it. But in the back of my head, I was like, well, why was he arrested? There are so many more prolific sexual abusers that should have been arrested. Why aren't any of them arrested? So system was working, at least at that moment, because, he has fled since then, and the system allowed it. So there are conspiracies there. So I am not immune from this. I was raised like this. I am aware of it. I'm trying to not be duped into it, but I am not immune from it. We are designed to treat the world with that level of disingenuous and disingenuity, and fascism just bleeds here. The fact that you can call an Iranian a fascist on social media and he thinks of that as a compliment should tell you a lot. It's not an issue we can solve in a day either. But it is scary how effective that has been. As I said, the American right has no better friend than Persian Twitter. It's their closest buddies. and I will see you all next week.